What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Truth Serum basketball edition tonight. As always, I got my faithful co host, Mr. Travis Sumter. And then we got a special guest tonight, and you might be doing some more of these with us. We'll see how we do. And you like to introduce yourself, baby?
I'm Chevy, just the greatest of all time, baby. You call me Tom Brady over here.
Tom
Or,
Brady,
or
greatest
you
of
can call me
all time.
LeGoat.
The goat. I love it. I love it, man. Like as much as me and you disagree on stuff throughout our friendship, like we both agree those are the best to ever do it. But we ain't gonna get into that. We're gonna have a knockdown, drag out fist fight on here in a couple weeks between me and Sumter. I feel it coming, but we're gonna talk about some current NBA news. So Sumter, why don't you kick us off with some of the injuries around the league?
All right, we're just gonna kind of go over kind of like the big fellas that uh, the Markel Fultz injury. He's gonna be out for season after that torn ACL. It's kind of unfortunate because I feel like he was just starting to come into his own, and he just signed that 3 year, $50 million deal. It's kind of a big loss for the Orlando Magic, and they're actually been doing pretty well this year to start off the year.
Yeah, they're 6-2, I believe, right, or seven and
Yep.
one, somewhere in that range. Yeah,
I think
they're
they're the second seed right now.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Fultz just can't seem to catch a break unless if it's a bone or something. I mean, he came into the league, he struggled, and he really has looked like he's coming into his own, and just horrible, unfortunate timing for him. But hopefully he can come back better than ever. And while I do think Fultz is, a big loss, and obviously he's out for the season, I mean, man, compared to some of the other names on this list, he's, small time. I mean, we got Carl Anthony Towns with a dislocated left wrist. He's going to miss at least a couple of weeks. We're talking about a guy who averages 26 and a half points a game, block and a half, 11 rebounds. It's just a fucking force for Minnesota. And they started off pretty okay. And, I don't think they'll be able to sustain that without him for these next couple of weeks. I think it really, really puts a wound in that team, so to speak.
Yeah, I think Cat going down is a huge loss for Minnesota. Also, I mean, you look at the injury report right now. The Nets are without their two big stars coming into the week. Kevin Durant missing it with COVID. I know he's only going to be out for a week. I think he's just missing, but you have him and Kyrie Irving, and the Nets. They started off on fire whenever they had their whole team rolling there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they looked like they were going to be unstoppable, like Golden State. And these two injuries, I think, are going to kind of bring them back down to earth. I don't know if they'll be able to gel when they come back, but huge losses there.
I mean, yeah, and it's already started to knock them back down to earth. I think they're 4-4
4-4, yeah.
right now, and I mean, man, that was kind of the knock on this team. Like we all know Kevin Durant is an all-world talent, but what was he going to be coming off of the Achilles? And granted, luckily this isn't any kind of injury for Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
It's COVID, but still, like I think there was a big concern that these two would miss games, and Kyrie's going to miss games. We know that for a
Oh, yeah, every year.
every year, right? But like it's a big loss, and if these guys can't stay on the court, and they also lost Dinwiddie for the season as well, I believe. So
Yeah.
they're really, really hurting right now.
Yeah,
They are. I think they
Oh,
are
sorry.
going to struggle, but yeah, go ahead, Travis.
I was gonna say, like any injuries, like these week to week injuries or anything like that, it's just big losses for any teams because with this kind of shortened season and then all these games played in such a short time period, it's just going to be a major thing on everybody's records.
Yeah, that and you lose that time to gel. I mean, when you have that season extended out, you have more time to gel. I mean, I know that they're not cutting out that many games, but still at the end of the day, they lose that time to kind of come together as a whole. And they looked like they were doing that already, especially like the Nets. But a lot of these teams, they're coming out and playing a little bit sloppy comparatively to what we expected. So
Yeah, and it's not your dad's NBA anymore, where teams have the Stockton and Malone pillars in jail for decades, right? Like the NBA is constantly changing players in and out year after year on teams, and so with the accelerated start to this season, the lack of a real off season, and very especially for those playoff teams that were in the bubble and then right back to it seemingly a month and a half later, I think absolutely that's a valid concern with some of the team chemistry on some of these guys. Um, I think there's a couple other ones I want to talk about. Man, Ja Morant with the left ankle sprain, he's out 3 to 5 weeks, and man, that's
Memphis is down a few players though. Memphis lost John Morant. I think they're Jaren Jackson's out as well. If I'm not
Jaren
mistaken.
Jackson's still out. Yep, on my fantasy
Yeah,
team.
so I mean,
Absolutely
both
not.
of those guys being out, that is kind of the face of Memphis. I think Memphis, yeah, they're another one that took a big hit. Of course, Golden State started off this year with the big hit to Klay Thompson out for another season. But yeah, Memphis, that young team there, I had high hopes for them coming into the season, and that's a huge hit.
Yeah, hopefully Ja can come back healthy and just do his thing, because I think he's one of the most exciting young guys to watch in the league.
Yeah, one of the guys I want to talk about too is Kristaps Porzingis. They did say he's taking that they're taking the time. He's about a week and a half away. Gonna go see how things go and see if they can get him on the court in the next week and a half.
Yeah, and man, that team needs him. Talk about a team that's off to a slow start and a weird start, man. Dallas, 3-4, blowing out teams that they probably shouldn't be beating right now, and then losing to teams that they should probably be wiping the floor with. And I mean, I think with Dwight Powell trotting out there every night at center, like it's a gaping hole in that team. And I think they're ready for Kristaps to come back. But I also think it's important that they don't rush him, because he's another guy. He's kind of fragile, man. And
yeah, just like Kyrie. I mean, you expect Kristaps to miss games every season. You also, I mean, yeah, every one of them. But Dallas, though, I feel like they're kind of like that every year. They beat the teams they shouldn't, or when it comes down to it, they beat the teams they shouldn't, and they lose those games that they should win.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's kind of their identity. Hopefully that's changing, but Porzingis is a huge loss on that squad.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say that even without Porzingis, Luka's stats still look phenomenal. But man, I'm a diehard Mavs fan, so I watch all those games, and he just hasn't looked the same as he did towards the end of the last season, except for a few moments. So I'm hoping that, as his conditioning gets better and everything, he starts to pop and shoot a little bit better. I think that's really what's killing him right now, is he's just missing a lot of shots. And I think Kristaps Porzingis coming in and being that second offensive force will really open up things for him in ways that guys like Jalen Brunson and Tim Hardaway Jr. aren't doing today.
Yeah, because they don't have to really focus in on Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jalen Brunson. They don't have to focus in on them. They know that the game's going to run through Luka Doncic. And so, yeah, Kristaps really took some of that off of him. And, Kristaps, as we saw, even I know it was considered last season, but just a short time ago, whenever the Mavs were in the playoffs. And as soon as Kristaps went down in the playoffs, I mean, that was a huge hit. I think he fouled out of a game or had gotten injured there in the playoffs. And at that point, the Mavs just looked like a totally different squad without him on the floor. That game turned into a blowout. I think it was against the Lakers. Yeah.
It was the Clippers, and it was like a 41-point game.
We're not going to talk about the ejection.
Yeah, the bullshit ejection. But I'm with you there. So let's move on from the Mavs. We definitely have the tendency to run wild on them since we're all Dallas, guys. But what about Trae Young, man? He's got an ankle injury. He's out at least a few weeks. What do you think this does to the Atlanta Hawks?
I think it really hurts them, because I think the Hawks are really, although they're they're a little down this year at 4-4, I believe they're really a squad that I feel like was coming together. They got a really good young team, and that team was run through Trae Young. And so Trae Young being out, that's going to hurt them. But I think Trae Young comes back strong, and I think the Hawks finish up, at least a 5 seed entering the playoffs this season.
I completely agree with you. And, the Hawks are one of those teams I was talking about earlier, just a completely different roster almost from last season. They really overhauled things this offseason. And, man, I think they got the players to stay relevant even without Trae Young. So I think there's a good opportunity for them to, gel a little bit even while he's gone, and then he comes back into the mix and pushes them over the top. But I mean, quite frankly, in my opinion, they're one of the most exciting up and coming teams in the league.
Yeah, we talked about that in the preview episode too, and then how high I was on that team, and I actually called them a top 4 seed coming into the season. So we'll see what can happen. It's a long season, still a long ways to go for this team. I I think they have just the right mix of young players. They're kind of getting some veterans in there that can be role players and that can do the things and do the dirty things, and just they're going to be able to get things done this year. That's the bottom line for me.
Yeah, and like you said, they've got the young players in there too, and with the overhauls that they've been doing the past couple of seasons, kind of getting their starting rotation as one of the youngest starting rotations in the league. I mean, you got DeAndre Hunter, Trey Young. I mean, that squad is it has a ton of potential and a ton of really good players that have shown they work in the NBA, especially this year starting off. I mean, I know we're only 8 games in, but DeAndre Hunter is really taking control of that team.
Yeah, absolutely crushing it, man. And I don't think it's going to slow down, dude. I think this team is really going to make some noise and surprise some people this year, which I will say I think I heard it first from Mr. Travis Sumter for sure.
What do you guys think about these big performances this last week from Curry and Beal?
Well, they both went the fuck off, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal tied. I think he tied the Washington record for points in a game with Gilbert Arenas. He had 60. And 57 of those came in the first 3 quarters. So he cooled down considerably down the stretch as they kind of let Joel Embiid absolutely take over and finish that game. I was very critical of Embiid coming into this year, but man, I'm just seeing an extra gear from that guy so far this year. But we aren't talking about him. We're talking about Bradley Beal. And man, I loved his post-game interview more than anything. He's like, man, I've done this before. I'm tired of fucking losing, man. And I hope that guy can figure it out and this team can finally start putting together some wins and maybe get that guy into the playoffs one of these years because they are wasting his talent.
Oh yeah, I mean he should have been an all-star last year, on top of making all NBA, and he got snubbed both ways there. I mean, to me, he was in the consideration for MVP. I mean, the only problem was his team didn't have the W's. And a lot of holding that back was, being on the Wizards, John Wall being out. But even if John Wall was in, come on, let's be real. John Wall is washed at this point.
Things I trust more than John Wall on my team starting lineup. All day.
I think it's absolutely crazy that you're not even hearing anything about Russell Westbrook on that team anymore. He just kind of faded off into the sunset now.
I was kind of wondering how it was going to all play out, being Russell Westbrook being a ball first, me first kind of guy, and getting there and it being Bradley's team, because over in Houston he kind of got put in his place, but he still kind of found his role as he could take the ball and try to score with it every now and again. But Bradley Beal is really, showing him, this is my team. I took it from John Wall, and you are not coming in and taking any of the spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we talked about enough about Mr. Bradley Beal. Let's talk about Mr. Steph Curry, the guy that everybody was saying couldn't get it done without Clay, man. I feel like the first couple of games or the first couple of days of this NBA season was just so much overreaction to Steph Curry and the Warriors. And I think he responded with the biggest middle finger he could with 62 points. Currently second in the league in scoring. The Warriors obviously aren't the Warriors from yesterday, but I mean, they're 4-4. They're in the thick of it. They're over a lot of playoff teams from last year, like the Blazers and the Mavericks, right now. And it's still early, but I think Steph is going to take this team on his back and use this as a springboard. And I don't see him not being in the playoffs if he is healthy the entirety of the season.
I mean, yeah, I think he's going to need some help. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's unguardable. And as much as I dislike Steph Curry, just for being as good as he is, the man can play and he can shoot, and there's no way you can guard him. You know, him and Logo Dame, but I still trust Curry with that ball from the logo to just pop one and hit the three.
every time.
But at the same time, I mean, he needs some help. So he needs those other guys to step up. You know, Andrew Wiggins, he's gonna need these guys to step up and kind of play their role. Hopefully, Wiggins can find himself finally in his career. But you know, other role guys that we were so used to seeing with the Warriors, kind of take off and do their part. Um, they're gonna have to find that again, and I think that kind of boils back to Steve Kerr. But yeah, Steph Curry, man, that guy's a freaking monster.
I think with Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and this team, like even the way it's constructed is way different than what it's been in years past. But I still think this team could still make a playoff push. This team could still win, and Steph Curry could still be an MVP.
Let's be real. It is definitely constructed way different than in years past. They don't have 5, 6 all-stars. They don't have 5 all NBA players. And this is where I think Curry writes his book per se. Because, a lot of knock on Curry is the fact that his team wasn't anything until these other guys were all-stars. No, don't get me wrong. They drafted a lot of them. Green, they drafted Thompson. They kind of built that team besides KD from the draft.
Yep.
But the knock has been that he wasn't able to do it without those guys. And I think this is his year to put that to rest, to say, hey, I can do it.
I don't think he will do it, but I think, I completely agree with you. I think, I see James Harden every year just go absolutely berserk on the stat sheet and wheel 4 inferior players to the playoffs every single season. I will bet on Steph Curry doing the same, if not more.
And that's what we were talking about too on the preview episode too. Something I brought up was about Wiseman and about how he was going to see a big minutes increase. And then we've had injuries on this team already at the center position. He's even getting more minutes. Wiseman is going to be a big impactful player for this team if they're going to make a run for it.
I'm not saying started every game this year.
I'm not saying this team's going to go off and win a championship, but being a 6th, 5th seed, possibly. We've seen Russell Westbrook carry his team in his MVP year with the 6th seed. They didn't do anything with it, but like you've seen it, it's happened. It does happen.
Yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely, it could happen.
I can definitely see the Warriors getting into the playoffs and then just PG-13 in it right on out, but they'll definitely be in.
I absolutely loved the PG-13. That was excellent, and I think we can all agree we fucking hate Paul George. So, obviously, Bradley Beal, Steph Curry. There's nothing real surprising about those guys popping, or they're talented, really great players. We kind of expect that to them, but. I want to kind of transition. Who are some people or some teams that you guys are just really shocked about, 7, 8 games into this NBA season?
So for me, not necessarily a team, but a guy I'm extremely shocked about is Brown for Boston. That guy, Jason Tatum's the guy they're supposed to be. And Jaylen Brown's come in this year and, just gone absolutely freaking nuts.
Yeah, and people forget that guy was a number 3 overall pick. He's got talent for days, and
right. But everybody's handed the team to Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker, and kind of forgotten about Jaylen Brown, kind of put him in the back, And we didn't expect this out of him, and this guy is absolutely. I've been hearing trade talks and rumors of him being moved for Cat over out of Minnesota when he gets healthy. So, that's just how much he's brought to the table this season. But overall wise, I was definitely surprised at the start of the Nets coming into the season, just because of KD coming off of that injury and not having much of an off season. I wasn't sure that they were going to gel so quickly. So I was surprised they took off, and, as quick as they climbed, they've fallen just as quick. But those are 2 big ones for me. And we're just talking about the Warriors. The Warriors are a surprise to me. I didn't think Steph could do it. I was a doubter. So
Yeah, he proven you wrong, baby. But
100%.
I just want to say I do want to comment on that Celtics discussion you had. So for me, man, I think what we're seeing this year is not only the emergence of Jaylen Brown, but I think that final step of Jason Tatum going from really great player to NBA superstar, right? And I think another thing we're also seeing is that team, man. Maybe they don't really need Kimball Walker. Maybe they don't really need Gordon Hayward or Kyrie Irving, man. Maybe these young guys are ready to take the reins and do it themselves. And I think this team is nasty and super
Yeah.
nasty come playoff time.
I think they're going to be one of the I mean, they've been talked about for the past few years that they're supposed to be this contender coming out of the East. And I think this is that year. I think they're finally, showing they're going to have a year. This is their year. Coming out of the East, I feel like the Heat, they're kind of a flamed out team per se. I think they had a lucky run last year. I'm not saying that they don't have great players over there and good players, but I feel like that was more of a fluke run. I think the Celtics are going to be a powerhouse coming out of the East. That's going to be a tough one to stop. And so far this year, under new head coach Doc Rivers, the Sixers, baby, they have taken off. And I hate Philadelphia as much as anybody in this world. There's nobody that can say they hate Philadelphia more than I do, just as a city. Okay. I hate the state of Pennsylvania, but Philadelphia itself has got its own special place in my hatred heart.
Oh, special place in hell, dude. Could not agree more with you on that.
But the Sixers are looking good. Baby Braun over there, his stats are way, way, way down. I mean, he's on a career low year, but Doc Rivers has that team going. He finally got out of, LA where the Clippers are. The Clippers, to me, are a big they kind of fit with Paul George. They just can't make it to the Eastern or Western Conference Finals. Neither can Paul George. So he'll never be a title holder. The Clippers won't either. But the Sixers, Doc Rivers, I think he's been a great fit there. He's got another nasty big man like he had with KG back in Boston, with Joel Embiid. I mean, this team is rock solid, and I see it the two juggernauts of the East going to be Boston and Philly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. And I think it's all going to come down to fucking drawing a blank. It's all going to come down to Ben Simmons for the Sixers. And to me, I think Ben Simmons is a guy who is kind of overrated. I don't think he has that next year, right? And so I think you're seeing a guy like Jaylen Brown ascend this year, right? And when you get into the playoffs, it's all about those superstars, man. And so you got two certified in Boston and you got Kimball Walker, right? What do you got in Philadelphia outside of Joel Embiid? And I think it's going to be up to Simmons to, really step in and do something. But the team,
he's never going to find his shot, though.
Yeah, I don't think he will either.
He's had enough years to find it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can't beat what he brings on defense. But to me, he's really just a more athletic Pat Beverly. I mean, he's a very good defensive player, but offensively, he leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not a post-up game, he can't shoot the ball. He can't jump shot. So
I feel like Travis is just itching to say something on this one. Look at that smile.
I was just going to say, in the 90s, he'd be the best point guard in the league.
Yeah, he would be. He absolutely would be, man. Yeah, but this ain't your dad's basketball no more, man. This is today's NBA. And man,
right, you got to be able to pop a jumper.
And I know it's early. Y'all. But I just want to announce, if the season ended today, the New York Knicks would be in the playoffs with a record of 5-3. Can we get some love to those Knicks coming out of nowhere, dude, and laying it down this season?
Yeah, but see, we know at the end of the day, we all know that the Knicks in basketball are really just a lot like the Texans in football. They're just a very poorly run organization. We could compare them to their own hometown Jets. Just very, very poorly run organization. The Knicks are never going to go anywhere. But if the season ended right now, you're 100% correct. They would be in the playoffs. wouldn't go nowhere, but they'd be there. They'd be there. They just screw up their tanking, you know.
Yeah. So I did read something today that I thought was awesome. It took them 25 games last season to get their 5th win or whatever. They're 5-3 this year. But I think you got to give some love and some credit to Tom Thibodeau, man. Like, this is another organization that he seems to be slowly turning around and making better than what they were. And I think that guy's kind of a overlooked, underrated head coach. I think he's a really good.
I think he's underrated until he's been there for a little bit, and then I think
it's overrated. I agree with that 100%. I've never heard someone say it that way, but yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
He was kind of overrated in Chicago, and then he got underrated, and then he was a little bit overstated. But yeah, I mean, he took over. We got to be real here. He took over a team that was so bad at trying to get wins, they couldn't even win the draft lottery with that bad of a record. So, I mean, that's how bad they were. They had a lot of good pieces in place, or potential good pieces, you know, because the NBA is, you know, so much different than the NFL. I mean, the draft is a lot shorter. You got a lot of less guys coming in, and first round picks are not meaning anything unless you got a top 2 to 3 pick. I mean, the picks after that, really, you don't. It's kind of a crapshoot. So,
yeah, for every Giannis, there's, you know, that guy that literally never even suits up in the league.
Right. For every Giannis, there's a Greg Oden.
I feel like Greg Oden's unfair, though. I mean, he had the talent. It was the injuries. I'm thinking of some guys like
flamed out.
For every Giannis, there's a
Greg Oden's got a ring, right?
What?
Greg Oden's got a ring,
he does. He does. He did like Kobe did and rode the back of another guy to get one. So
hey, he did the same thing his draft mate Kevin Durant did. There ain't nothing wrong with it. What about you, Travis?
He does have a ring.
Who have you been surprised about early this season?
Oh, the damn Phoenix Suns are sitting at the 1st seed right now in the West.
Yes. The Phoenix Suns are doing it without Devin Booker, too. Booker is down. I think he's only putting up – I say only, but for Devin Booker standards, he's putting up just 21 points a game this year, a career low. Like, this man is not doing it. And a Chris Paul pass-first offense, he doesn't have to be the man still, so.
And I think this Chris Paul pass-first offense can be freaking deadly down the stretch, man. I think the Suns are – a real dark horse to make some noise this year. I think
until the playoffs.
Until the playoffs?
Chris Paul likes to pull a PG-13 and back out real quick.
I think we know how that goes.
I think that's fair and unfair because, you know, I also remember Chris Paul winning some series in the playoffs he probably shouldn't have. So
back with the Hornets, or are we talking about with the Clippers?
I'm talking about with the Hornets.
I think we better just not talk about it because his hamstring's going to tighten up.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, look at what that dude did with Oklahoma City last season. That's really all I got to say. That team had no business in the playoffs, and he willed them there. And I get it, you know. They have some emerging young guys, but nobody expected him to get that team over the hump last season, and he did. And I think
you're right. You're right. I mean, I didn't expect, you know, even guys like Shai to bust out like he did in OKC, and you're right. You know, OKC had no business making the playoffs. That was supposed to be a rebuilding squad. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to be tanking for, you know, first overall pick, and he got them to the playoffs. I mean, he did a lot there, with his albatross contract.
I'll also say this. I don't think there is a player in the NBA right now that I would rather see win over than Chris Paul. Like, it's just such a glaring omission from his resume because, quite frankly, man, he's one of the best to ever do it, and it's been a fucking honor watching that dude dominate the league over the last, 15 or so some odd years. But, he's been
in the league a long time, and to – kind of like with LeBron, Chris Paul's a lot, being able to keep this high level of play for this long. Now, has Chris Paul faded off a little more than what we would look at LeBron and say he's faded off, or kind of, some come off? Yeah.
Who hasn't?
But, but we're comparing him to the GOAT there. So let's be real. But to be at a top level of play like that for this long, Chris Paul, 100% going first ballot Hall of Famer. The only thing you're right, missing from his resume and missing from his, Hall of Fame career, the greatness that he's brought to the court is a ring.
Yeah, absolutely. What about some of these the teams in the West that are under 500? The Blazers, the Mavericks, like some slow starts in the West for sure.
Yeah.
The Blazers, I think, are just missing it defensively. That was kind of like their big glaring hole last year. They're just not winning the games they should be winning. That's all it comes down to. And like I'm Lillard does everything he can to will this team to wins. Night in and night out. Just he can't do it all by himself. McCollum is not consistent enough to help him out.
Do you think they eventually move on from CJ?
I think they need to. If they're not going to be in the playoff hunt come trade deadline, CJ McCollum's as good as gone, in my opinion.
I think CJ McCollum's been a disappointment the past couple of seasons for him, consistency wise. Don't get me wrong, he pulls those big games out to where he pads his stats and keeps his stats up there to look like he's, a legit all-star, but really, and another guy down there that I feel like is kind of a overrated is Yusuf Nurkic. I mean, that guy is he's not as good as he's played out to be. And I think he has to step up his game, especially defensively, and to really kind of help boost this team. I mean, Dame can't do it all.
So let me ask you this, guys. Right now in the West, we have the Nuggets, the Mavericks, the Trailblazers, the Thunder, and the Rockets, all playoff teams last year, all under 500 this year. Of all of those teams, which one do you think is in the most danger of actually missing the postseason this season? I'm going to throw out the Thunder for obvious reasons, but out of the other one, who do you think's most in danger of missing out on the playoffs this season?
I'd have to say, in my opinion, the Blazers or the Rockets. The Rockets are going to be my pick because James Harden's not doing his all like normal. I'm not saying he's not still putting up ungodly numbers, but he's not giving his whole heart to that team. He wants out, and I think he's gone this season. So,
and I don't think John Wall is going to inspire him to stay there at all. Do you disagree with that, Travis? Do you think the Rockets are in trouble?
They might be in trouble, but I think there's still time for Harden to right the ship. He'll put this team on his back, and he'll score 45 a night if he has to.
Do you guys think James Harden will finish this season as a Houston Rocket?
no.
I think he will, but only because what the Houston wants, they're not going to get, and what other teams are willing to give, they're not going to give. So
I think one of them is going to give by the trade deadline. Either a team that feels they're one piece away, or they've got a really good squad. They're right on the brink right there, and James Harden's going to just put them over the top. I see them making a move like that. So,
but I mean, like a small market team though, like a small market team isn't going to, try to play for that. I mean, can we see like the Knicks scoop in maybe if they're going to be a playoff team at the trade deadline, kind of come in if they're in the contention?
The Knicks are absolutely stupid enough to trade away everything for nothing.
Oh yes,
and
and it's happened before. We've seen it with Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo. I mean, when they traded Kristaps, I think don't get me wrong, he's injury prone, but if he's not injury prone, I mean that guy's worth way more than what they got.
That's fair, but I also think the Knicks thought they were getting a lot more from Dallas with I can't even remember, Dennis Smith Jr. Than what he's been. And talk about a guy who just did not live up to his potential.
He flashed his rookie year, but it didn't pan out.
Didn't pan out, and I think the Knicks are somebody I wasn't even considering, but I could definitely see that. I think the biggest blow to Harden getting out of Houston happened when Spencer Dinwiddie went down for the season, because I think the Nets are the team that were probably going to be most all in on acquiring him, and I don't think they get that deal done without him. But if I'm just fantasy shipping out here and just picking his perfect match, man, I would love to see him go over to Philadelphia because I think that would completely make those guys an absolute contender for the title.
Philly or going to Portland.
And I did read a thing today that like Philly's not willing to give up Simmons. That's not in the cards.
Yeah, well,
but why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? And I think they're crazy because I would ship Simmons off in a heartbeat for James.
I would ship Simmons. I would give Ben Simmons away for less than Houston got for DeAndre Hopkins.
And that's why Chevy's not an NBA basketball general manager right there.
You give me a quarter-eaten cheeseburger, okay? I'm taking it for Ben Simmons. That guy is He ain't winning no titles.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. But I just think that
his value to the NBA is more though.
What?
His value to NBA GMs is a lot more. So I would get that guy out while his value is still high enough to get out.
It's at least like a cheap mushroom and Swiss burger or something. Like you gotta get something out of it more than a half-eaten cheeseburger, baby. But I would like to see James Harden really go to another organization that he can make a difference in because I think his time in Houston is obviously numbered.
I wouldn't mind seeing the Clippers putting together a package and kind of really go for it with that getting PG-13 and Kawhi and just that, I think that would be enough to get that team over the hump because
do you think the Clippers can pull that trade off without Paul George, though?
I'm not sure they don't have the assets without Paul George to pull that off.
Yeah, I agree.
They gave everything to OKC for Paul George, and there's nothing left in the cupboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only way I could possibly see the Clippers getting over that hump to, even challenge the Lakers. I don't think they could even beat the Lakers, but that's the only way they could challenge the Lakers. That's just my opinion on that.
I think barring injury, I don't think anybody's touching the Lakers this year, man. They're just too deep. They're too loaded, man. As a Mavericks fan, watching Montrezl Harrell come off the bench for the Clippers last year and just being like Jay Crowder on steroids, man, just a bad man all over the court, right? Like that was a huge asset to them. And the team that they already could not beat just took him. And that wasn't even their biggest offseason acquisition. Like I think the Lakers are filthy. I think this is the best team LeBron James has ever been a part
of. I do think the team that really should go after, Harden if he was going to be on the block should be the Milwaukee Bucks, and they should give up Middleton and picks and acquire Harden on that team with them. Like that, the scoring between him and Giannis would just be insane. Just be insane and be unstoppable to, try to guard him at the three, guard Giannis and, coming down that paint. Like it just be an unstoppable 1-2 punch.
Do you think a smaller market team that's off to a hot start, like the Knicks, like the Magic, like the Pacers, do you think any of these guys are going to be in play for anybody?
I don't think the Pacers would be.
Yeah, they'll probably just ship off Oladipo and Tank because it seems to be what I would hate to be a Pacers fan. I bet that's fucking miserable.
Yeah, the Pacers are pretty bad at doing stuff like that. I think with the Pacers, they're never really in the market to trade for anybody, any of the big stars.
But they're really good at finding talent, man. Over the years, they've done a good job, and I think they have another emerging stud in Domantas Sabonis. So.
Yeah. I think one of their biggest problems on top of that, though, is just the fact that they don't take the risks. I mean, what's the risk worth to you? I mean, we all saw what Toronto did. They took a risk on Kawhi. Yeah, they only got him for the 1 year, put that broad a title to Canada.
Yep.
So is it worth the risk? If you're right there, are you going to say no because the guy's not going to sign long term? Or are you going to say yes to try to get that one title and then try to work on convincing him to stay off of it? I think, Toronto kind of wrote that book, and I think that a small market team can make that push and might make that push this year if a big guy like James Harden is still available at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I would argue on if Toronto wrote that book, but I think they published the best version. I know a little team in Dallas that's done some pretty incredible shit over the years and pulled off some crazy trades they shouldn't have. But I definitely think Toronto did it best for sure. So, anything else you guys want to talk about tonight, or you want to go ahead and wrap for this evening?
Go ahead and wrap on this evening. I think we've covered quite a bit of it tonight. We'll kind of see how some games play out the rest of this week and be back ASAP.
Hell yeah. So I'll get with you guys. We'll figure out the next pod, but let's get out of here. And as always, stay true.